Okay, our next guest this morning would be, our guests, we should say. First, we Corporal Derrick Shabodie. For many of you, it's a name that you've been hearing for years upon years upon years. Shabodie, call Shabodie. You got a problem with your youth? Call Shabodie. Well, he's manager and founder of the St. James Police Youth Club. He's been 22 years in service. I have this long resume that I can explain all his credentials and stuff, but basically on the bottom line, he's here because he's doing work with youth, and as well, we hope eventually to get online criminologist Rennie Cummings, because Rennie has been our guest a couple of weeks ago when we discussed youth as well, and all the issues that Shabodie is gonna, he said, based on the discussion that we had, not with Rennie, but with Anna Maria Moore, because this is like a recurring decimal, the issues with youth and violence. So we take it from another angle. We had Rennie, we had Anna Maria Moore speaking about adolescents, and now Shabodie has asked to come onto the program to explain to us the kind of work that the police are actually doing. So I suppose he's also here working on the police image as well, because when you hear of police and youth, you think shooting.
Adversarial, yes.
Yes. So Mr. Bishop.
And welcome.
Well, morning, and thank you for having me. And I need to salute the DJ extraordinaire.
And I salute you too for the work you've been doing, because one of the things I did, thank you first of all, one of the things I mentioned to one of the folks as I came in the building who our guest is, and he said, oh, you mean him? Whenever he deals with them, they don't come around to give trouble again. I'm not going to go into what that's going, but it's important. Youth empowerment and friendly space center. Youth empowerment is very important, what Sharmain said, and our listeners know it. It sounds like an adversarial relationship when you speak of police and youth. It's good to know that, bridging that gap, because it is in society's interest for us to get them to see opportunity and not only walk in when it's time to correct, but as our parents would say, bend the tree early before we have to cut it down. Explain what you're doing.
Through the establishment of the Police Youth Club, we were able to work with young people in redefining what policing is all about. We were telling them that, listen, we are concerned about who you are, because we are fathers too, we are uncles, we are brothers, and we are also concerned about your personal development. While Saturday was the only day I had the time to work with young people, and whatever time in school, the government was kind enough to give me my own center on Cerulean Road. Through Senator Wade Mack and Mr. Rowley, it was basically an abandoned government quarters. And the American embassy came on board and said, we will fix that for you. And it was repaired with about 75% flooring, that kind of stuff. And that's how the journey started. We have a 16-piece orchestra, we have Moko Jumbies, we have African dance, we have gemology, you name it. All the activities evolved as a result of the young people saying, so we would like to see this take place. But while all young people are talented and are blessed with that, intrinsic talent, we have to deal with the discipline component.
Yes.
And I felt that discipline would have opened more doors for them, so that we had to bring on board what you call a self-development and a personal development skills program, because they come from broken homes. And we do not believe that young people are at risk. We believe that young people are at promise. Because once you remove them from at risk to promise, you work with them better, you take them to the next level.
Yes.
We also feel that in every child there is a light just waiting to be turned on. And we as leaders need to tap into that light. So police officers redefine itself in terms of being a big brother, being a counselor, being a mentor. All those are important fundamental characteristics that we require as an officer. And we will receive the young people actually doing our public relations for us. They will go back and saying, come join the Police Youth Club. And I would see two young men walking the youth club center and saying, so look, my friend, you would like to join the youth club. And these are young people coming from St. Babs, Snake Valley, Bagatelle, rough areas. And as I speak, I work with the court system, where the magistrate and the probation department is looking at not YTC and St. Michael's as a first. Yes. They felt that the Police Youth Club can also be used as a vehicle to assist these young people in finding their path. And it is working.
I like the idea of your judo training, because what you're in fact doing is finding an avenue for all this aggression.
That's right.
There is a lot of aggression, and if you find a discipline that they can, one, put out some of that energy, and two, learn that it's from within, is where the strength is and not without. It helps you with the whole question of conflict resolution and so on. That's right.
Parents were very concerned about the judo and the martial arts, because it has this combat, but we had to re-educate our parents as well.
That's the one. The art itself is in the head and not so much in the hand.
That's right. And we tell them that God has blessed you with 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, and you can do so much with it. So we launch a program called Join a Club, Not a Gang. Pick up the drums and drop the gun. And today we are the Drums of Thunder champions in Brooklyn, New York. Young people have done very well. For the first time, they went to Brooklyn and they won the champion head off with Nigerian groups, a lot of South African groups that did some presentation. And you could see that the self-esteem was raised. They felt good about themselves. But more than that, we felt that working with single-parent mothers and bringing the fathers back to connect, not to go back home, of course, but to establish a relationship with their boys, because we have a male support group and young men were crying out, so I don't see my father.
Yes.
My father don't like me. I don't have a relationship with my dad.
It is a discussion that has to go not just with the fathers, but it must go with the mothers too, who seek to use the children as leverage and keep the fathers away, because it creates the problem. It exacerbates the problem.
That's right. You preempted an important factor that we work with. Some parents are sincere but sincerely wrong, and we want to redefine even the corporal punishment. We let parents know that the whip is not first preference. You can use different methodology to communicate with your kids. So we develop a program called Love and Logic, where you teach kids tough love. It's not always and that's that's one of the unfortunate definitions that policemen got when we went into schools. I will bring the officers here, and when the officers finish with you, you'll get a good cocktail. And we find that was misleading. I mean, they say we articulate, we can swing it, we can talk, and we know to get through the young people. And putting a police officer with a fireman in front of a school, while it minimizes and reduces, it is not helpful.
It is not helpful.
It feels that a officer can be more useful.
Again, it's the conflict resolution. If you think that is the way you deal with difficult situations, if they see it, then they will take it equally and go with it, Sharmain.
That's right.
I'm trying to find out what kind of support do you have from parents, because how many youths come to you on their own? All right, how many youths are brought by their parents? How many come to the club through the courts? Right, but then I'm also seeing too that you have different bodies with a management board, a parent council, an organizing committee, the men's group that you just spoke about, youth executive body, and a male and female support group. How easy, how difficult, how is it for you to get your support?
Well, in my early years in youth work, it was very tough. But because of my training and because of networking, it kind of create a greater response in terms of parents. Single parent mothers are looking for help. They want help. They don't know what to do again. Their hands are basically saying, I don't know what to do with my son. I don't want to bury my son. I don't want to see my son in a cell. I cannot come with $30,000, $40,000 for an attorney at law for a matter of firearm or wounding, that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of single parent mothers who are being referred to us. And again, traditional policing, my colleagues in the station are now referring young people to me. So when a matter comes and a marijuana matter is, listen, there's something deeper that is going on. Let me talk to Officer Shabodie and see what we can do to help this young man to create a new environment that is also conducive. And if you feel that the young men are bad, there are a lot of reversals with the girls as well. The girls are very aggressive. They're telling fellas, if you're soft, you're not ready yet. And that has to do with the importation of foreign culture. That's a lot of factors that are now nurturing and developing young people. And we cannot demonize Facebook and demonize the social media. We have to look at the positive and the negative and educate young people.
And also what we are failing to do as a society, there's a very important component in all of this. The society has a responsibility. When I hear of a group like yours, I look all over the world at police athletic leagues and many different things folks have set up. And when we have, what you're attempting to do here, the society must understand that their stake in your success is as important as their existence. Because if you have a situation where a place becomes ungovernable, where crime is rampant, where the aspirations of youth is not there, where they have no outlet whatsoever, they are going to make it difficult for the best citizen and the best gated community to not enjoy the benefits of their success.
That's right. And let me say this, crime has both negative and positive. Crime, while it's ugly and it's unfortunate what we see in our society, crime is also saying that if you're not organized, if your community is not pulled together, if there's not networking, crime will continue to blossom. And we too many times we speak and we don't listen to our young people, and we need to apply good listening skills.
That's right.
And we have a support group, and young people are saying, so there's a lot of inequity in the school system. I sometimes go to school for 5 years, and I can count how many times my teachers come to school, but yet still have to do the same exams. Come me with everybody else, as is to say that there was an equal share of the pie, and all was well within my school. So there's a cry for a lot of inequity in the school system.
That point actually links with what the Minister of Education said. That every year you've got 5,000 kids who are falling out of the system. And they're falling out because they're jaded, because they see the inequity, or because they feel aggrieved in one way or the other. So you're right. The education system is another area of serious exam that we need.
But I wanted to ask you, you'll be hugely successful with St. James Police Youth Club. We need many more in all different parts of the country, as strong and as organized it is. This formula that you have, because you're the founder and the manager of it, how many other police youth clubs are there?
Well, as we speak, we have over 100 police youth clubs.
Over 100?
Yes, the commissioner this commissioner, Mr. Stephen Williams, has given a mandate that in every division, every community, a youth club should be established. So the senior superintendent has a responsibility not only to fight crime, traditional crime, but also a proactive approach to crime prevention. So that he selects youth police officers who probably in mind or in kind, who may have the character to go out and work with young people. Some only operate on Saturday, unfortunately, and they are appealing to get their own center and develop their own programs, because through that you can work more with young people. So as we speak, we have over 100 youth clubs.
Would you be able to say what's your intake at St. James in terms of how many youth you've been dealing with, at least at your current batch?
We have 184 children.
184 children.
184. We have some come through the court system and some do community service. Again, I want to applaud the probation department. For minor offenses, they're not putting what you call the offense attached to the name.
Yes, yeah.
So it is expunged from the file once they do the community service. Yeah. And we submit a report, and in most cases, young people who are given 180 hours to do at youth club, they become youth club members. We have a young man who's doing drumology, he's our drumology tutor, and he was sent to do community service. And I said, what else do you do? He said, the boss like a drum. I said, could you come and assist young people in drumming? He said, the boss anytime. And today he was very instrumental in teaching young men and young ladies the art of drumming. So it's all about using and maximizing the talent. Young people are talented. It's just you have to tap into the talent very early.
The voice you're hearing is that of someone who is regarded as an ideal model, one who is thought of by many as a doer. He is Corporal Shabodie. We are happy to have him here. And joining us, as we promise our listeners, is criminologist, criminal psychologist, crisis communication, litigation, PR expert in media skills training. All of those things describe our next guest, Rennie Cummings. Good morning to you, Ms. Cummings. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
We are doing fine and great to hear you. I know you've been following our discussion here, the whole question of intervention with youth. I know that you have something that's coming up on Saturday. We will give that information to our listeners, but dealing in the area that we ask you to join us, and you have been kind to give us of your time before youth and having an opportunity for them to let out the energy. I am sure you will be saluting, as we are, the aims and the actions of the police, St. James Youth Police Club.
Oh, definitely, and good morning to Officer Shabodie. It's always nice to hear him, and I know he's been doing an extraordinary job with young people in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think what he needs really is much more support, definitely much more resources, given the kinds of issues that we have in Trinidad and Tobago with our young men and now our young women.
Thank you very much for your kind sentiments.
Yes, so the area then is about a society understanding that they have a stake in assisting organizations like this. Lectures you give, you're going to deal very shortly with guns and ganja in a session this coming Saturday. Do you think there's an understanding from the community that their actual enjoyment of what they work for, they enjoying life, is dependent on their input in correcting the problems we have with youth? Do you think there is that general understanding?
Well, I think, Rennie, what happens is that when we speak about young people, we often speak about young people and youth in a very negative light. And I think we speak our youth development in this country, but we don't really invest the requisite resources.
That's right.
I think when it comes to an understanding of social deviance and an understanding of juvenile justice and juvenile delinquency, we really have not got there yet, because I think what I have realized working in that field and working with young people and working with their families, even working with some of our schools, is that we have a disdain, I think, in this country for scientific inquiry, and much of what we do is often based on serendipity or done in a very ad hoc manner.
That's right.
And when we start to take an evidence-based look at what is going on with young people and come up with evidence-based solutions, we're going to see a different kind of direction in this country. So I think it's not so much the communities. We've got to remember there are so many marginalized communities in Trinidad and Tobago, underserved communities who are not getting the resources, or who only get the resources when it becomes politically attractive to give them a little bit of resources. So we have got to do a lot of rethinking when it comes to our policies that look at juvenile justice and look at juvenile delinquency, really.
You are putting on something this weekend that our listeners should know about. Would you please go ahead and give the information on that?
Oh, definitely. So Saturday coming up, this is my second public lecture. It's being sponsored by the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's about guns, and it's about gangs, and it's about murder. I'm going to be joining conversation with Dr. David Brotherton, and he is one of the preeminent criminologists in the United States. He has about 15 books out on gangs, and we are going to take a non-pathological, non-law enforcement, non-corrections interpretation or critical rereading of orthodox criminology, and we're really going to look at gangs against the backdrop of the social, economic, political, cultural currents that shape the evolution of gangs in the community. So this is going to be radical criminology. It's about intellectual capacity building and intellectual curiosity and just sharing the knowledge, particularly hoping that university students will come out there and really grab this information.
That's this Saturday at the University of Trinidad and Tobago campus?
No, it's at Napa. Yeah, I think that's their theater that they use. So it's 5 p.m. Saturday, the 25th of April, Napa. Yeah.
You are in concert, I know, with Corporal Shabodie on the area of gangs. Now, we've been discussing what he's doing, and I'm going to ask both of you just to exchange for our listeners to understand what you have found out, Corporal, what you have found out, Rennie, in the area of gangs. What is the attraction to youth in the first place? And please follow that up with giving us some direction as to how the society can understand the draw and assist.
Well, I think from my research, and my research has mainly been in the U.S. with the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings, the Latin Queens, and of course that research being done under the direction of David Brotherton, what we have realized, Rennie, is that more young men join gangs than they join the Boy Scouts every year. So there's definitely an attraction, and you have got to look at the evolution and the development of youth in marginalized environments. And we've got to understand that in communities, there is a social constitution in marginal communities that is different to the constitution of the country. Yes. And I think historically, underclass and marginalized youths have been stereotypically sort of portrayed as dangerous. So when you look at how a gang develops in a community, you have got to look at the social, the economic, the political, and the cultural currents that come together to shape the individual. So it's not like, we often hear these stereotypic reified interpretations of gangs as being pathological and being these sick young men and being so violent. And we don't see it as that. What we do see is young people who are searching for an identity, and everyone wants to get rich, everyone wants to be part of the dream, everyone wants to have the resources, and not everyone has the access. And people use their agency however they can use it to acquire the things that they want. And we've got to come with that's what I'm saying, a radical rethinking of how we come up even with our prevention and intervention strategies when it comes to gang reduction.
Corporal, that social disconnect, I'm sorry, is exactly the problem that you're encountering, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Most of the young people that come under my charge, well, I don't want to say charge, but under my care, and who have had an appetite for gangs, because number one reason is that they have a relationship with their dad. There is no male figure in their life. There is no positive male figure in their life. There's nobody carrying, the extended home is not doing justice, and the uncle is not coming on board to work with young people. It's all fragmented.
Given that as it may, I want to take the discussion forward because we know men are endangered. You mentioned, and it's in your work, that girls are more aggressive than the boys. They clearly. Now, this is not something that we are highlighting at all. Yes. So we have taken what is one of Bishop's favorite words, a quantum leap in terms of our landscape, in terms of crime, youth, violence. It's very different. So now there are a lot of young women working for the guys who are in prison, of course, as one, outside there, basically, if you look at schoolgirls on the street as compared with schoolboys, you clearly can see who is more aggressive. How are you treating with that? Because while there is not a father figure in the house, there's always a mother. So therefore, young men are growing up basically weak and weaker. So which would explain why in the Trinidad context they would head to gangs to look for that. But they are at a disadvantage where young women are concerned, and I want you to bring that and highlight that for us, because it's a real thing that I don't think even the police service has grasped, and it brings us to the issue at Carnival where the girls from Silas were fighting one another, the Savannah. Yeah, and the police, they were extremely aggressive. The police were there, mostly male police officers, reached to the point of firing shots in the air to break up a fight among women. And still no one was arrested at the end of the day. So therefore, I'm trying to imply that you all are just leaving this as an issue as women, and you just don't know how to handle it.
There's a policy in the police. The way you think is the way you speak, and the way you speak is the way you behave. So our challenge is to really challenge the way you think. And we have allowed through our main support group to adopt a young man. You're not just there to come in to be involved in the police club, but certainly we have assessed each case, and there are young men who would need immediate intervention. They would need that father figure. And through football, through judo, through martial arts, they can find that solace, they can find that connect back, and you see that relationship is established. And we allow the young men to understand that the empowerment starts with them first. You can turn your minus into a plus. You know, mommy failed, daddy failed, I would not be a fail in life. We tell them that good education makes you shine, but good discipline makes you glitter. Let them know that pressure makes you precious. But the greatest thing is that being an example, you can have all these nice words and all these lusty paraphrase, but if you're a poor example to the young men, they'll point out to you. And we have a lot of things in document that is good, but we have poor examples. So the young people saying, officer, don't even tell me about that gentleman, because he's no example to me. So the gangs has now connected with the young men, but superficially with a price. And they provide a false sense of safety. They give them money, they give them car, they give them all their basic needs in a superficial way. But there's a price to pay. So the question of the value of their life, we let them know that God has a purpose for them. God didn't make up, you're not a mistake. You have a future. You know, God has a design for you. There's a future for you. And we can take you through that part.
That voice you're hearing is that of Corporal Shabodie. He's with us this morning along with criminologist Rennie Cummings. Rennie, this area causation is something we know. We understand what has been, proffered for young men and the attraction to gangs. Speak to the issue of women, Sharmain raised, which is also a serious problem that is not oft discussed.
Which, before Rennie comes in, which Corporal Shabodie just did not answer just now, because
that's why I
am getting the impression that you all just don't want to own up to the fact that women are the leaders among the young criminals.
That is an established fact. I was pointing to the men first, and I thought that time would have given me to spend on the females.
Well, I have a female here, so let her.
Equity, okay, balance.
Equity, thank you. Criminologist Rennie Cummings, go ahead, please.
Well, I think what we're seeing, and Sharmain is right, more young women are coming in front of the criminal justice system, more young women who are justice involved. I think sometimes we take away the agency from women, and Sharmain is putting that agency back, where there are a lot of young women who are leading criminal enterprises in Trinidad and Tobago. Whether or not women have become more violent than men, or young women are more violent now, I mean, we don't have that level of research, so I won't, sort of broad brush it, but we are seeing expressions of violence. And what I've realized is that when you think of Trinidad and Tobago, and I keep saying that it is a society that is suffused in violence, and when we look at the kinds of socially toxic environments in which young women are being raised, I mean, I have had to deal with a lot of young women in this country recently who've been expressing themselves violently, and they are being raised in violent situations. Some of them are coming out of situations of incest and sexual abuse, and some of them have had to learn to fight from very early to protect themselves. And I think we need to have a more gender-responsive reaction from the criminal justice system, but we are just not there yet. When you think about it, and Sharmain, you would know this, what do we have for young women? Just St. Jude's, And right now, St. Jude's is in a state of crisis. The Catholic Church is giving it back to the government. The government is trying to find out how do we move forward with bringing a proactive rehabilitation approach to that. The girls who come in front of the justice system are put in an adult prison. So we have really got to look at young women. And I have been calling for a very long time for a more gender-sensitive approach to young women who are justice involved in this country.
Gender-sensitive is not my agenda this morning. I told Rennie I would like to take that off my agenda clearly. But what I'm seeing, and I hope that the people who do the research, as you're saying, on the ground, by the time the research gets into into paper and books and in digital, it is a horrid problem. It is.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you, Sharmain, is that yes, there are some young women who are acting violently, but you've got to trace it back to where does the behavior begin. And when you look at the high levels of sexual assault and sexual abuse in Trinidad and Tobago, you've got to link that to something. So a lot of these young women who are behaving aggressively, right, we can't say that they're more aggressive than they were back then, because back then we didn't have social media to post it on Facebook for us to actually see it. So to say that they're more aggressive now, I mean, I can't say whether or not they are or they're not, but I'm just saying that because of social media and because of that, the access, we now are seeing representations in moving pictures. But when I speak about a gender-responsive system, it means that you've got to design the programs to treat with girls, because girls and boys develop delinquent personalities in very different ways.
Shabodie, how are you all addressing this with the girls?
Well, definitely we have a short-term, medium-term, and long-term program. You have to address problems based on its immediate needs. And the girls who are coming to us that are violent and on suspension, we have a suspension program that between the hours of 8:30 to 2:30, once you're suspended, your time will be occupied constructively. Because suspension seems to be a rank. You look forward to suspension. You go back and line in the school vicinity, and young people looking on saying, hey, this is not a deterrent. So we have established a suspension program at our center. And when you look at the nature of the suspension, it is problems of home, love. Nobody to care for them, nobody to embrace them. Up to last night, I had a young girl crying, saying, my mom don't love me anymore. My mom has a new partner now. And I do not consider my stepdad. And she do not take care of me. She have no time for me. So that she's placed in a new club and she feels that she's only dumped there because, mommy wants to ensure that her free time is given because the mother is also young. So you have that case of young parents making children.
You articulate a point that I've heard a number of people articulate, including our guest Rennie Cummings. But in your program here, you've got parenting training, counseling, and mentoring. The parenting part is what you're referring to. Am I correct?
That's right.
And that, I think, is at the heart, at the bottom, at the root of some of the problems we have.
Well, it has to be a holistic approach. You cannot deal with one without the other. Once you get the parent on board and you develop the parent, they are an excellent partner. Parents can undermine your work. You can do so much with the children. When the child goes back home, the parent saying, let me tell you something. What's to tell you in that club? When you come here, it's the front.
Hence the reason to get them involved in this, and that's why I am applauding this program that you have here.
It must be planned and deliberate. It must be planned and deliberate. It must be tactic. It must be innovative. You must show them that I'm your partner. I'm not here to fight you. I'm not against you. I'm here to work in concert with you to bring about a more empowerment parent.
Rennie, the event coming up this week, just to conclude, is Gangs, Guns, Drugs, and Murder. This is, again, something that every aspect of it is something that affects what we're experiencing here. Are you seeing David Brotherton, who will be there with him? You've worked with him before, Mike, right?
Well, not only work with him, he is the chairperson of the criminal justice of the sociology department of John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He is the ultimate PhD advisor. He is one of the preeminent criminologists in the States, as well as he has been awarded last year America's Critical Criminologist of the Year. So he is the preeminent thinker when it comes to understanding gangs in the community, and his research has been so broad-based. He also looks at deportation and this whole diaspora of American deportees that has now been created across the world, and how that is interacting with, the economies and the globalizations of gangs. So he's really forward-thinking. He's very radical in his thinking when it comes to crime and deviance. And as I said, this is really for our university students because, Rennie, so many master's and PhD criminology students reach out to me. And what I've realized doing my own gap analysis is that they don't have the ability to interact with the thinkers in their field. And this is about really stretching the criminological imagination a little further and hoping that we could inspire a whole new generation of game changers when it comes to thinking in this country about crime, criminality, criminal justice, and criminology.
Well, you have captured my Saturday evening for the 25th. I will be there. It is going to be at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and I thank you very much.
Napa, right?
Yeah, at Napa, yes. Gangs, guns, drugs, murder. Renee Cummings, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Brunch.
Thank you, and Sharmain and Officer Shabodie, thanks as well. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. You have yourself a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.